Welcome to the June the 2nd, 1992 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. We are very excited today, for we are on the threshold in a few days of celebrating Juneteenth. And in honor of that celebration, we have a very special family from the Dalworth community that have resided in Grand Prairie for many long years, and we have picked them as our outstanding family today to commemorate the Juneteenth celebration that will be forthcoming. We're very pleased to present to you, first of all, the matriarch of the Reed and Harrison and Smith family, Iola Reed Smith. We're so glad to have you with us, darling.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. And her illustrious grandson, Mr. Charles Harrison. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Pleased to be here, Miss Jackson.
Yes, we're so glad to have both of you all on the set today that we can tape for posterity your wonderful family history. Let's begin with you, Iola. And if you'll look in this direction to your camera, we'd like for you to start out by telling us the name of your mother and father and where they were located when you were born, darling.
My mother and father lived in Oklahoma. They had migrated from Texas to Oklahoma.
All right.
And I was born there. They was born there in 1904.
You were born in 1904, and where in Oklahoma?
At Colbert, Oklahoma. And that was 3 years before Oklahoma became a state.
So you were
it was
born
in the territory.
Oklahoma Territory. Would you give us your mother and father's name, please?
Fred Douglas Reed and Cora Lee Reed.
All right. And did they have any other children other than Iola?
Oh, yes.
Would you like to name your brothers and sisters, even though maybe some of them are deceased?
Yeah, just name them.
All right, just name them.
Lola, Booker T, Thurlease, and Iola, Thelma, Cecil, and Clarabelle, and Napoleon, Randolph Reed, Napoleon Reed, and Cecil Arthur Reed.
All right. Now that was a...
And then Charles Reed, and Merle Reed, and Uriel Reed, and Fred Reed Jr.
That was
that's some of them.
that is a goodly number, and you have a marvelous memory to bring all of that to mind, Iola. All right, where was the town where you were born? What's it located close to now so that we would identify?
6 miles from Denison, Texas.
6 miles from Denison, right across the Red River?
Right across Red River.
Mm-hmm. And what did your dad do for a living?
He worked on the railroad, a foreman on the railroad.
All right.
In Oklahoma.
All righty.
That's what he did in Oklahoma.
All right, now what brought you from Oklahoma to Texas, and when?
Well, my father and them, they decided to come back to Texas.
All right.
Because they formerly lived in Texas, in Waco and Marlin. And they decided to come back to Texas, so we came back.
And where did you come to?
Palmer, Texas. Oh. And my father, he farmed there.
Okay, and your father farmed in Palmer, Texas.
Uh-huh.
All right, and what did Iola do while all of this was going on? Were you a child helping on the farm?
I was going to school.
All right, where did you go to school?
At Palmer, Texas first.
All right, okay.
And then my mother, she passed, and then I came to live to Grand Prairie with my sister.
All right, which one of your sisters did
Lola.
You came to live with Lola?
Lola.
And what was Lola's?
Lola Jones. She was Jones, and she was married. And then I came here in 1916.
1916 to live with Lola Jones, your sister, and was that here in Grand Prairie, Texas?
Grand Prairie, out here on the line. What they call
out on the line. Tell us a little bit about the line. If you remember about the line, you and I have made several trips out to that site, but tell our viewing audience.
It's the lake there now, and the lake is all in the lake now, but we had churches out there, the school, the hall, and everything. That's where I went to school out there.
Now, the lake you're talking about is Mountain Creek Lake.
Mountain Creek Lake.
Okay, was it out near Hardy Road in that area, or was it on farther east and down into the lake?
Right on down Freetown Road, you know.
All right. The line was located on the east part of Freetown Road, right?
That's right.
All right.
And so it's been a long time ago.
Yes.
But we had school, churches, lodge, and everything was out there.
All right. I know that you had the Antioch Baptist Church.
Yes.
Was there another church or so there?
Not until we organized Evening Chapel.
All right. When did you remember about the organization of Evening Chapel?
Well, see, I wasn't here in the organization. It was organized in 1915.
All right.
And when I came here, well, they was already organized. And we, at that time, we met in the hall.
Okay.
At the hall.
At the Masonic Hall?
Masonic Hall, the Mason
Yes.
Hall.
Was it out at the line still?
It was out on the line.
All right.
The churches, Antioch Baptist Church and everything was out.
All right. And there was a cemetery, the Antioch Cemetery, wasn't it?
Yes, it was up by the...
On Hardy Road.
On Hardy Road, yeah.
Okay.
That's where the
That was a
cemetery where it is now, but one part of it is the old cemetery.
Yes. All right. Talking about your church, let's show and tell, shall we? When I visited with you the other day, we found this Evening Chapel, AME Church, Grand Prairie, Texas, and it has here that it was started in 1760, and this is a commemorative folder of 1968.
Well, this was the one that organized the AME Church.
That's this young
Richard
man.
Allen.
Richard Allen was the organizer of that. And we also have a wonderful history of the AME Church, plus the beginning of that church in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Yes.
And I was so excited that you let us copy this wonderful, wonderful brochure that gives the first site of the first church in Grand Prairie. And where was it located?
The first church built
Yeah.
was on 19th and Sherman, where it is now.
19th and Sherman, right where it is, across from David Daniels' house, right?
Yes.
Yes, and that is wonderful. Were you going to church there at that time when the church building was here in Grand Prairie?
Well, we came back, my father and we came back to Grand Prairie 1920.
Oh, you did?
And 21. And then that's where I went to church all the time.
All right, now, when you came here to live with your sister, where did you meet your husband? And had your children, and I want you to name your children.
Well, I stayed with my sister, well, for a while, and then I went back home.
Oh, you did? Back to Palmer?
Not to Palmer. My father and them had moved to Corsicana, Texas.
All right.
And that's where I met my husband,
All right.
because it seemed to me that he was staying with, somewhere staying there with him. But I had no idea that
Yes.
at the time that was going to be my husband.
All right. Would you like to name for us your children?
My children,
Yes.
Florence,
All right.
Ola, Harrison,
And that's Mr. Harrison's mother. All right, go ahead.
and Dorothy Lee Singleton.
All right.
Now,
And your son.
and my son Lehman Lafayette Jr. I just had 3.
That is wonderful. All right. And how many grandchildren do you have? A bunch?
I had 22 grandchildren,
All right.
and I had 68 great-grands
All right.
and 21 great-great-grands.
Now, that's a bunch of Christmas presents, isn't it? All right. Why don't we let you rest a minute and let's talk a little bit to Charles Harrison, your grandson, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Charles Harrison, would you look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about your genealogy, give your mother and father's name, and your brothers and sisters. Would you do that for us?
Yes, ma'am. My mother's name is Florence Harrison. I was born in Dallas back in 1943.
All right.
And I've been here in Grand Prairie for 49 years. I believe my birthday is on the 27th of June. And I have 3 daughters.
All right. Would you name those 3 daughters?
My oldest daughter named Sharon Harrison, and my middle daughter named Angela Michelle Harrison Lucky now.
All right.
And my youngest daughter named Carol Annette Harrison. Then I have a son named Reginald
Okay.
Mack Harrison.
Do any of them live in Grand Prairie, Texas at this time?
All 3 of my daughters is back in Grand Prairie. My daughter was in Germany, and she just got back 3 weeks ago back to Grand Prairie.
Tell us that daughter's name and what she's been doing.
Her name is Angela Michelle Lucky, Harrison Lucky, and she was director of sports for the federal government. She went to Germany with her husband, and while she was in Germany, that she got a job there with the federal government, and she's was the director of sports.
I understand that she is quite a track star.
Yes, ma'am. I think back in the early, a little before she finished high school, she went to the Junior Olympics in Lincoln, Nebraska, and she placed for the city of Grand Prairie park department, and she brought back a trophy and a medal from Lincoln, Nebraska in the long jump.
Now, Mr. Charles Harrison, in your time in Grand Prairie, Texas, I believe you were born in Dallas, but you came here right after the hospital birth to Grand Prairie, Texas. And where did you live in Grand Prairie at that time?
Well, yes, ma'am. I was born at Parkland Hospital, and 5 days later I was brought to Dalworth, and we lived at that time on let me see, it was El Paso Street. It was a 2-story house, was sitting right there on El Paso Street and 18th, and right behind Mr. Sam Brown.
All right. Now, growing up in Dalworth, tell us about your going to school, where you went to school, and bring us right on up to date, would you?
Yes, ma'am. I went to Dalworth Elementary School, and also during that time it was Dalworth Elementary School, elementary, junior high. Then once you got to high school, then at that time you was going to Booker T over in Dallas, because it didn't go no further in the elementary and in middle school.
All right, Charles Harrison, in the elementary grades, who were some of your teachers, and who was your principal, and who was your favorite teacher?
Well, Mrs. Simmons was the 1st grade teacher, and Mrs. Davis was the 2nd grade teacher. Miss Page was the 3rd grade teacher, and Mr. Talley was the Miss Jackson was the 4th grade teacher, and Miss Daniel was 5th grade teacher. My favorite teacher was the 2nd grade teacher, which was Mrs. Davis. She was, and I was rather small at that time. She used to carry me home with her in Dallas, and spend the weekend with her just about every weekend, and I loved that, part about
That's
it.
special attention.
Yes, it was. And Mr. Daniel was the principal.
All right. When you were in elementary and on up through your middle school, did you have a specialization? Were you an athlete? Did you do anything special in school, or just try to make good grades?
Well, I was good in track. That's about, I tried to play football, during the same time, and tried to play on the same team with that Charlie Taylor played on, but I wasn't the type of person that, wasn't too good of a football player. I was just there like some of the rest of them. But at that time, the Dalworth Dragons had one of the best football teams in the state, in the district. And but I was good in track. Couldn't too many people beat me in track.
So you had a very first hands-on and meeting experience with Charlie Taylor, the famous Redskin.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I mean, I've been knowing them. We've been knowing each other from kidhood all the way up, from the time that they moved out here in Grand Prairie from East Texas to Grand Prairie, and I know them. I met the family during that time, and Ms. Mert, I used to work with her at Hood's Cafe right down the street on Jefferson Street, was there for a good many years, and I worked with her there, and I know the family a long time.
All right, and then Charles Harrison, going on through school, decided he would get married. So you married and had all of these wonderful children that you've told us about. But what has happened to Mr. Charles Harrison in his life over all of those years in Dalworth? I know that you've been very sensitive to the neighborhood and especially to the boys and girls. Would you like to let the people in video land know what Charles Harrison does with his life other than working for a living?
Well, in 1969, I decided I would go into the Army. I went in the Army in 1969. I had an unfortunate accident while I was in service, and it happened in basic training. And then I had to get an early release from the Army. So I was trying to decide with my life of what I was going to do once I got out of the service. So when I was released from the hospital, they made me hospital attachment, then released me from the hospital, so I came back to Grand Prairie. So I was trying to decide what I was going to do. So then I thought about the times when I was small as a child, and come from a large family. I have 12 brothers and sisters, 3 sisters and 9 brothers. And during that time, you know, cost of living was, it didn't cake that much, but at the same time, people just didn't have as much that they have, you know, right now. You know, it's like a nickel would spend a long ways, but at the same time, a lot of people didn't have that. And Mr. Daniel, I remind Mr. Daniel used to go around, and he used to be Santa Claus. He used to be, you know, do the Easter egg hunts. He used to do the toys for tots. He's a person that bought all the groceries to the family's houses that didn't have it. He the one that went around at the time that I growed up, that when people had the utilities cut off, he's the one that had them cut back on and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So I decided that I would pat him behind Mr. Daniel, and he had been my idol, and I said, well, I would get involved in the community. The first community project I got involved with was with Mr. Carlisle Smith Jr. He decided to run for state representative, and he came out there, and we met with each other, and done the first project was Easter egg hunt.
All right.
And
was this for the boys and girls of Dalworth or the whole city?
It was the city of Grand Prairie.
All right.
Any project that I have, I don't isolate it out to the one particular area or one particular race of children, because all children is important and all people is important. When I give a project, it's for all children, regardless to where they want to come from, whether it's Grand Prairie, Early, Arlington, or Dallas, because you don't turn a child down. Even if a child is not, I try to work with the disadvantaged, underprivileged child, but if a child is not in that category, I still don't turn them down, because a lot of times the children don't understand the reason why they're being turned down, because their parents is more fortunate than other parents. So I still accommodate those children as well.
How many years have you been doing the Easter egg hunt? And then we're going off into another area where you do the hot dog things for the kids in the park. But how long have you been doing the Easter egg hunt, hosting that?
I've been hosting Easter egg hunt since 1972, almost 20 years, and also Toys for Tots, almost 20 years, the same. Right after my first project, like I said, was the Easter egg hunt. So I went from there, and I thought about the times that I grew up as a child. A lot of the time, with a family as large as that we had, a lot of times that we needed some kind of assistance from someone, and we always know that we was going to get something because Mr. Daniel going to be there, you know. Yes. And he bought toys to our house as well as bought toys to other family houses there in Grand Prairie, so in Dalworth. So I decided I would go that route.
That's great. Now, your Toys for Tots, I know you've done that. Also, there have been many projects that go on when the kids are in the park and you see that they need supervision. You also see that they get hot dogs and things like this. What got you off into that direction, Ms. Harrison?
Well, within this day and time, you know, a lot of parents is doing a lot of things, and not, putting the parents down or nothing that they're doing, but a lot of the children is being neglected in so many different ways, and sometimes those children, when you get those hot dogs away, sometimes those children really, enjoy those hot dogs. Sometimes they really need them, because in this day and time, not only in the Dalworth community, in a lot of communities, children is being neglected in a lot of ways, and one of the main things where children gets into a lot of crime, because a lot of times they're hungry. If you can feed the stomach, then you can help save the mind. And even with your help, you have not only myself, you have, when I first met you was in 1973, when I was at City Hall to get the approval to host Toys for Tots for that year in 1973, and you was just sitting there in the audition yourself, and you were just listening, and then after they approved that, where you pulled me to a side, you said, explain this Toys for Tots thing to me. And then once I done that, then and on that year, I never will forget, you was one of the major tributes to the Toys for Tots for that year of 1973, and I always will appreciate you for that. And like I tell anyone that since the time that I have been involved, I just got involved in it in 72, I met you in 73, and all of those years that you have been involved in the Dalworth community, in the projects and different things, especially when I come to you. The last hot dog party that we had there, we fed over 1,100 children, and you was one of the major contributors to that, Ms. Jackson. And I would like to appreciate you for that.
Thank you. It's been a real exciting adventure watching Charles Harrison work. Now, hasn't it, Iola? Your grandson is a real stem winder, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
All right. Do you have any other grandchildren living in Grand Prairie, Texas, that you have to share the spotlight with Charles? Do you have any other grandchildren here? Would you like to name drop?
I don't have any more in Grand Prairie.
Not anymore in Grand Prairie. He is the only one.
The rest of them lives in Arlington and Dickens.
Yes, you've let them get away from us.
But they all doing, most of them are got good jobs. The girls, the great-grandchildren.
Yes.
I don't have any grandchildren that lives here in Grand Prairie.
All right, I'd like to ask you this. You're really involved in your AME church and with the senior citizens that meet at the Recreation Center. Would you like to talk a little bit? We have about 4 more minutes left, and let's do a little talking about what you're doing with your life now, Iola.
What I'm doing with my life right now is working with the senior citizen and my church work. That's the main thing. Then we have our Eastern Star Lodge in that. But mostly what I'm doing is the church work and helping the ones in the community. We have people there that's sick, you know, Miss Oliver, who's my main buddy.
Yes.
And I cooks for her sometime and just yesterday I cooked all of her dinner for her and carried her. So I'm just helping the people that need around me and anywhere that needs help.
Would you like to name drop maybe the minister, the pastor at your church, and some of the other important people at the AME?
Well, yes, Mr. Reverend W.M. Hoffman is my pastor, and the mother of the church, Mrs. Ella Mae and James Anderson.
All right.
And Miss Maddie Nance. She was one of the women who was in the church when it first moved to Dalway.
Yes.
And I think we have quite a few there, and all of her children and some of my grandchildren, great-grands.
Great-grands.
Uh-huh.
Now, I noticed the other day when I was invited to attend your senior citizens meeting, the final meeting at the Recreation Center, when you had a big lunch and everything. That is a wonderful fellowship, and the group that sings, do you sing with them or you just sit and listen?
So did I do what?
Do you sing with the group that does the singing?
Yeah, we sing, yeah.
Tell
we
us.
have that we call it the Senior Citizens Fellowship Singers.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
Uh-huh. And that's, we go to the nursing homes, we go
All
to
right.
the nursing homes, and in fact, we have an appointment next week, I think, up at the Dalworth at that nursing home up there. And we go to all the nursing home, and we carry, and Easter we carried flowers and little gifts and cards and baskets to the nursing home.
I thought you were going to forget to tell me about that, because I've been hearing about all the works that you all do with the nursing homes and that good singing group, and they certainly are marvelous.
Yeah.
Would you like to name drop the leader of the singing group so that we could?
Well, Mrs. Stanton.
Johnny Stanton.
Johnny Stanton is
at the Recreation Center. But who is your song leader that it was so wonderful the other day?
Daniel. Miss Daniel.
All right.
Uh-huh.
That was great. I know that we enjoyed the singing so very much, we just couldn't pass up on that too.
I just some of the things, with these 88 years, I can't remember just everything like it.
All right, when you're 88 years old and you've lived in Dalworth since about 1916, have you seen lots of changes that have come about?
So many changes. Because
That-
I've lived different places, but
Yes,
this is the main thing. So
And you-
many changes.
and you have
Like
your
a-
home.
Yeah, and so I was, we was talking about how food was then.
Yeah.
You could buy a nickel's worth of flour was a nickel a pound, and sugar. I could send up there with $1 to Armstrong store and get a whole bag of groceries.
Yes, that is true.
Uh-huh.
We're going to let you rest a minute. We have 2 minutes, about 2 minutes left. Mr. Harrison, is there anything that you'd like to say about the changes in Grand Prairie in about a minute and a half, and look right out into your camera?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to say it's been a lot of changes since my youth coming up here in the city of Grand Prairie, the Dalworth community. I've seen within the urban renewal plan, that was a major change there. We went from the mud to the sidewalks, and I have seen a lot of changes in the parks, and I have seen a lot of changes within the people, and a lot of changes within the government. Ran City Hall with the communications to the Dalworth community. It's been a lot of changes since my youth coming up there here in the city of Grand Prairie to Dalworth.
Now, you don't live in Dalworth proper right now. You live out on Highway 303, but you're still with that community?
Yes, ma'am. My roots is in Dalworth. I moved out on 303 because it was convenient for me and my children to go to school for the school purposes, and it was more convenient for me to move out there. And then at that time, I wasn't looking out for myself. I was looking out for the best interest of my family, and that was the best interest of my family, to move from Dalworth to the south side of town. So since all of my daughters finished high school, and I have 2 of them went through college, so therefore now I have 2 grandsons that's on the way. One is 17 months old, and one is 3 years old.
Wonderful. That is a great heritage and Iola, because you've cared enough to take care of not only your kids and your grandkids, your great-grandkids, and your great-great-grandkids. You are a very special lady. We want to salute you in a special way, and we asked Charles, of course, to come and aid and abet us in this, but you're an outstanding person in the city of Grand Prairie, and especially in the Dalworth community, and you've been good to all of us in Grand Prairie. I want to thank you all for sharing your lives with us on the show today. It's been wonderful to have you.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the offer.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.
That's true.
Amen.